Welcome back to GTD. It has been a great week of sports. We were actually at one of those events at the Roval this past weekend. That was a great time. An amazing college football slate that lived up to the hype. A solid NFL Sunday as always. And then, of course, October baseball going on right now, playoff baseball, and then F1 is back this weekend as well. So we got a lot to get to. Let's get right into it.
And
Keegan,
more
how was your
notably-
sports weekend?
Well, it was great,
Yeah.
but also if y'all noticed these giant boom arms, we got microphones.
Yeah, we
got
have microphones.
a little box, which will probably distract half of our brain rot ADHD viewers with the pretty green and white lights. But hey, that keeps attention. So at something. So maybe not be us, maybe this little red box. But that's
Next
why
week, we're
bought
putting
it.
Subway Surfers under the podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great. Me and Mike were in Charlotte most of the weekend. Got to hang around some teams. Went to some shops. Hendrick. We'll get more into that later with some things that happened at Hendrick. And then at the race at the Roval, it was great. But like we said, college football. We were right around Charlotte. We're like, all right, we got to find a place to eat and just watch college football because the landscape was amazing and it 100% lived up to the hype. Sorry if you're at a wedding this weekend. We told you not to go, but you didn't listen to us. So yeah, we'll break down the biggest one. I feel like Ohio State, Oregon. What do you have?
Well, what I have is vibes, and I picked Oregon solely based on vibes here. I said I thought Ohio State had it on paper. I was going to go with the Oregon vibes, and the Oregon vibes are enough. And also, what is Will Howard doing on that last play? Straight out of the Cowboys from a couple years ago.
Or Tennessee last week.
Yeah, when Dak did that Nico Iamaleava last week, and just this is a weirdly common problem. You'd think you would know what the clock is before you go into a play like that to slide right at midfield.
It's NIL.
Yeah, definitely. It's the NIL. But both of these teams, I think, showed that they were good teams. We discussed at the start of this game whether we weren't sure if a close game would mean both these teams were maybe not as good as we thought or that both of them were maybe just as good. And I think it's the second for this game.
I do too.
Both of these teams really showed up and showed out. We were both worried about Oregon at the start, but they got it together, and that Autzen Stadium crowd was rocking as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was elite environment. I am glad Oregon won. I did want Oregon to win. I know I picked Ohio State, but that was more so just the lack of what I've seen from Oregon this year. But I have seen it now. They do have it. I'm liking what Dylan Gabriel is able to do this year in games like this. And Dylan Gabriel just outplayed Will Howard. I mean, it's college football. Better quarterback's going to win. And I think he was the better quarterback. Not by a lot. I think it was very, very, very close. But obviously, 32-31, he outplayed him just enough to score one more point.
I think Will Howard actually outplayed him. I think Dylan Gabriel is a lot of what you saw from Bo Nix last year, with a lot of the take the check down, take the short throw, take the throw behind the line of scrimmage. As far as playing quarterback, I was more impressed with Will Howard, but this Oregon defense I thought held together really well. And how about Evan Stewart, a receiver for Oregon, finally showing up? This super highly regarded transfer from A&M, and he's finally doing what he's supposed to.
Yeah, I think the transfers are what won Oregon this game. That's what you think would happen with Ohio State with all the amount of money they spent, but I mean they didn't get it done. But it's a hard place to play, and they will see each other again in the Big Ten Championship, I believe.
Hey, don't sleep on Indiana, man. Come on.
I think a lot of people think this is going to be the Big Ten Championship rematch, and it's going to be a very, very good rematch if we get half of what we got Saturday. So I'm very excited for that. But, I mean, you can say one team outplayed the other, but realistically, they played very similar. That game could have gone either way all night. I will say Ohio State had the momentum at the beginning. If they did just a better job of shutting down Oregon in the first quarter, I do feel like this game is way different because they silenced the crowd, had all the momentum, and then Oregon had some short fields. The short fields are what won Oregon this game.
Yeah, definitely. And you saw them really take advantage of those. That's something that if you want to win games, you really have to do. But next up, let's stay in the top three as far as rankings go with Texas. And we talked about Red River. It seems to always be a little bit drunk, maybe not what people expect going into that game. And this year, that was not the case. It was a Texas beatdown. Oklahoma, it's very clear, just has no offensive identity right now. Part of that is due to Michael Hawkins Jr. starting in replace of Jackson Arnold. I don't know that this is really on Michael Hawkins Jr. per se because his top 4 or 5 receivers have been injured for what feels like all year at this point. This feels like a write-off season for Oklahoma at this point.
Yeah, I agree, but Texas they look good. I mean, I'm not saying Oregon's great. They're not. I don't think Oregon's a top 5 SEC teams this year. Not Oregon, Oklahoma, sorry.
I was like, what?
But Texas, I mean, they're still undoubtedly the number 1 team in the country right now, in my opinion. And I'm very excited to see them when they play Georgia. I don't think it's very much. More of a competition than Oklahoma, but still, I think they landslide Georgia.
Keegan, don't spoil the Thursday Picks episode.
But I mean, I'm very excited to see what Texas has to offer, and right now they are the cream of the crop as far as college football, and I don't see anybody being able to dethrone them as of now.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is this team's leader as well. I know a bunch of people are like, start Arch, but Quinn Ewers is the heart and soul of this Texas team, and benching would be a complete mistake because he really knows what he's doing out there. There's a proven leader that, when he's healthy, will win you games for Texas.
That's what he did. He didn't have the best first quarter of the season against Oklahoma, and then the veteran guy he is made some adjustments, and boom, won the game by a big number.
Yeah, Quintravian Wisner, also a great game for Texas as well.
Yeah.
But then the night game, LSU versus Ole Miss. And I don't know about you, but after this game, I don't think either of these teams should be in the top 15. LSU did win, but it felt more like LSU didn't lose.
Yeah, this felt like this was very different Ohio State, Oregon. Two top of the AP poll, 25 teams battling out, best of the best in college football. This kind of just felt sad. Like they were both trying to lose, like trying not to lose and trying not to win. And Lane Kiffin, I'll say it again, has outcoached himself.
Yeah.
Time and time again, had the game won, outcoached himself. What do they have, 6 points in the second half? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6 points in the second half is not going to win you a football game in Death Valley. Like, what are we doing? But either way, even from the first quarter, Lane Kiffin was just trying to do too much. And now they have an excuse to keep Brian Kelly. So Brian Kelly's not going to get fired, but they should still.
Well, they have two of them now. I don't know if you saw that picture, but there appear to be two of Brian Kellys on the LSU sideline. But Garrett Nussmeier, I think if you let this guy develop, he's eventually going to be a very solid quarterback. Although Kyron Lacey at receiver for the Tigers is just a freak. If you haven't watched Kyron Lacey go turn on the tape, you'll be really impressed. Obviously caught the overtime winning touchdown for LSU in this game. He is a great player for sure. Then quickly, a few games that
overtime was a theme this weekend.
There was a lot of overtime, and a couple of those that I wanted to mention. Let's start with Tennessee, Florida. I'll start with my own team. I'm a Florida fan, and holy cow, fire Billy Napier, and also heart goes out to Graham Mertz. ACL tear, will not be back the rest of the season. You really feel for him. This is the kind of guy that Florida fans were begging for to lead this team for a lot of the early 2010s when you had stout defense after stout defense. Just didn't have a guy like this at the quarterback position. Mertz has been a very, very solid player for Florida and definitely a rough end to his college career. But DJ Lagway came in and really almost won Florida this game. A great throw to tie up the game. And then I want to get your thoughts on this. Billy Napier is getting ripped right now for not going for two to take the lead. What do you think?
I don't think it's the fact that he did or didn't go for two is the game. I think it was his indecisiveness. Because if you are going to go for two, you should already have the play. You should have what you're going to do. You should be confident enough to put your guys on the field and go for two. He didn't do that. He's put his extra point team on the field, then took them off, then put his 2-point team on the field. Tennessee calls timeout, takes them off, puts his extra point team back on the field. He's so, like, he just doesn't know what he wants to do. And as a coach, you have to know, this is what I'm doing. I'm sticking with it. I'm writing this. My guys are going to get it done. So that's the problem I have.
Yeah, I would have gone for two all day. You're riding a backup quarterback in
a game you shouldn't have been in against a top 4 opponent. You got nothing to lose.
The game you absolutely should have been in. They should have been up 20-0 at the half.
Before the game started, they should have
been in. They had 4 possessions in the red zone and had 0 points away from 4 of those possessions. This is just, Florida should have easily won this game, and I think the blame is squarely on Billy Napier for this one.
I agree with 100%.
Sticking with the theme of overtime games, let's talk about a game that Keegan cursed, and that is the Penn State-USC game. Keegan, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
My bad, y'all. So we're sitting at a Buffalo Wild Wings, a B-dubs, and it's 4th and 10, 4th and 7, I think. Penn State's got the ball, USC's up, and I go, I'm so glad Penn State's going to lose because they're not a top 5 team. And they continue to get not 1 but 2 4th and 7 or longer conversions on that drive to score, take it overtime, and win in overtime.
Yeah, they did do that.
Yeah. And then, real quickly, lastly, y'all know we have to talk about it. Alabama, USC, or not the
U of SC.
Yeah. South Carolina, another tight ball game for DeBoer. The last, 10 quarters for DeBoer has been very, very, very sketchy. So the fans are kind of starting to realize this is not Saban's, nowhere close to Saban's. So
no.
Buckle up.
Listen, if Malachi Moore had done the freak out he did at Vandy while Saban was there, I don't know if he would have been playing this week.
Yeah. But I feel like that Malachi Moore freak out was an embodiment of what Saban would have been doing to the players had he been there.
I don't know, but it's definitely an interesting game. South Carolina, the thing for me here, they had a chance. There was the open guy in the end zone on the 2-point conversion. Wide open. This game could have easily been going to overtime. Then they got the onside kick, and then Norris Sellers was like, Alabama safety's down there somewhere and launched it to the defense. Not what you want to do in that spot, but Alabama escapes South Carolina. And then one last thing on college football. Let's talk about the Big 12. And I know you're big on your Mormons, BYU.
Still undefeated.
Yes. Iowa State is now a top 10 team. I believe they're number 9 right now. Kansas State just got a solid win over Colorado. And we were talking about Arizona, Utah, Oklahoma State at the start of the year for the Big 12. Did mention Kansas State as well, but a lot of those teams are flat out of it right now. Oklahoma State's 3-3. Utah just got obliterated by an Arizona State team that might make some noise by the end of the year. If you guys don't know about Cam Scatabo for Arizona State, look him up. He's a great running back. And then this Big 12, the top of it, Iowa State's come out of nowhere to be number 9.
It doesn't matter. BYU's winning it.
Yeah.
You don't even have no competition. They're number 14 right now. Should be number 3, I think, maybe 4. They're winning. They're winning the division. They're winning the conference, whatever you want to call it. And they're making a deep run. I'm not gonna say they're making it to the Natty or winning the Natty, but they're making a deep run. But as far as college football goes, that's all we have today. Tune in Thursday for our college football pick'em special. A few big, maybe momentum shifting games. A few maybe sneaky, silent, like kill season games. Like we always have in college football. But we'll break those down on Thursday.
A number 2 ranked team goes into Purdue at night, and if you are an Ohio State fan, you know why that's not a good thing.
Exactly. But on to the NFL, more football. We got a few quick hitters to hit for y'all. We do have already a little short video previewing Monday Night Football, which is going on for us in a few hours. Make sure you check that out. It's the Bills-Jets going on. But what do you have as far as other NFL news?
How about Caleb Williams? I know he played the Jags. That's the caveat here. Played the Jags. But the last couple weeks, Panthers and Jags, he has looked very, very good. This looks like the guy that you wanted at number 1 overall. It looks like he's really starting to figure it out, really building chemistry. And this whole NFC North, not just the Bears, this whole NFC North looks really good right now.
Yeah, no, it does. And this is a team that we didn't, like, because some people expected Caleb Williams to do this, some people didn't. Some people were like, oh, it's going to be a build year. And I think that's what it's been. So far, it's been a build year. He didn't start out great, but he's getting better and better, like a Heisman rookie quarterback should do, and give him time. But I'm excited to see what he can do. But another Heisman quarterback, we are seeing what he can do. That's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Dropped 50 on the Saints, and Spencer Rattler's first start.
While throwing 3 picks, by the way.
Yeah.
Dropped 50 anyway.
Yeah, which, I mean, kind of like some Jameis Winston days, throwing the picks, but still getting some wins. But he's getting a lot of wins this year, and a lot of points, and a lot of yardage. Baker Mayfield looks good. We've talked about it, I think, every episode at this point, about him and this new system and how it's just working for him.
Yeah, and I'll tell you who I was impressed with in this game. It was Syracuse legend Sean Tucker. 14 carries for 136 and a touchdown. Also added a receiving touchdown, 56 receiving yards. This guy was pleased. If you get that, you get that. If you don't, you don't. Next up, let's talk about the Lions, who...
It's a sad moment. It's a funeral. It's a funeral right now.
Well, he gave Jerry Jones a great birthday present. A 47-9 beatdown. Holy cow.
Well, they didn't keep scoring that game. I saw they didn't keep scoring.
Yeah, I saw they blurred it out.
The scoreboard.
Yeah.
Yikes. Not a good move. Not a good look.
I've never seen a team more disrespectful of another team than the Lions were of the Cowboys and Saints. They were running design hook and ladders to offensive linemen.
I loved every second of it.
This was hilarious.
Not because I hate the Cowboys. I do love what Dan Campbell's doing with the Lions. I want to preface that. I'm not like a Stephen A. Smith. I just love the style of play Dan Campbell has.
I do hate the Cowboys.
I don't hate the Cowboys.
I do.
I don't hate the Cowboys. I think Dak's not the guy, and we've already talked about it. We don't have to get into that. But I think the Cowboys fans can finally rest and say, all right, it's not our year again, and go back to thinking they're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
in
the
next
Commanders
2
are
months.
winning the division.
Yeah, possibly at this point.
Because the Eagles are frauds. Yeah, let's talk about it. They almost lost to the Deshaun Watson-led Browns.
Yeah.
And then, after escaping that barely, Nick Sirianni goes off and is like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm the man. This is my least favorite head coach in the NFL right now. He has no situational awareness, it feels like, ever. He's always trying to, like, own a moment or get, like, a gotcha or taunt opposing teams' fans. You better figure out how to run your own team before you start taunting opposing fans or even your own fans sometimes. I really just don't like him, like, as nicely, not like as a person, but as the way he's doing coaching I just don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Nick Sirianni hater. I agree with a lot of things he does. There's some things, obviously, with every coach I could point to not agree with. But I don't think Nick Sirianni's, like, the biggest issue with this team.
Then what is?
I just think you saw a big drop-off in their offensive line. And I'm saying it's all Jason Kelce, but I think his leadership and just role there kind of embodied, like, that line.
Even with Jason Kelce, they've consistently collapsed under Sirianni.
Yeah, but how much of that is Jalen Hurts? Just because I've watched Jalen Hurts for a
Jalen
long
Hurts doesn't
time
play
now.
secondary.
Right, but
Last year the secondary went, I'm going to head out. And the whole team.
But they don't have a good secondary. And that's not the coach's fault. They don't have any. Name a star on their secondary.
The secondary was playing well, though, the first half of the year. I get they don't have a good secondary now.
The secondary, the defense is always going to be in front of the offense at the beginning of the NFL season because they don't practice anymore. That is my take. The defense will always be ahead. It's like pitching always being ahead of hitting in baseball because you just don't have the reps in yet.
I don't know.
And you're not in rhythm with your receivers and your running back and your quarterback.
This team is always like yelling at your home fans after barely beating the Deshaun Watson-led Browns.
It's their job. I know they barely beat him, but he's an NFL coach. That's his character. That's his role.
No,
he's that coach. He's a coach of the Eagles, that team. If there's any team and coach that's going to do that, it's a perfect fit. Yes, you're trying to hype up the crowd and try to push them.
He wasn't hyping the crowd that way. He was rubbing it in the crowd's face like, oh, you wanted me fired? No, I'm still winning games.
In Philadelphia, that is hyping the crowd. It isn't like Philadelphia. They're going to show up whether they're angry, love you, hate you. They're going to show up, and you just want them to yell.
He's fired at the end of the year. He's fired at the end of the year.
I don't care what they're yelling at. They just need to yell something.
No, he's fired at the end of the year. He's fired at the end of the year.
I can see that. I'm just saying I'm not a hater. I'm not a stay-around hater.
Fine. Anyway, let's talk about cars going in circles. It's NASCAR time. Not circles this week.
Because we have the Roval and F1's back. Yay.
Yes.
But let's start with the Roval. Big cutoff race. A lot of big news. Larson, dominant win. Really,
yes.
Not a whole lot to talk about in the race, except for Tyler Reddick's insane drive in stage 3.
Boy, I was stressing out. So we were walking all over the place in the infield of the Roval, kind of finding different places to watch
turns,
it. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, we see on the screen Tyler Reddick's car becoming a plane off the side of Denny Hamlin, which, by the way, you don't need to make that move there. You have a fast car. Why are you making that move there?
Let me get this in real quick before we keep going. Reddick's stage 1 and 2 may have been the worst road course driving I've ever seen.
He won stage 1. He drove really well in stage 1. He won stage 1. Stage 2 was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, stage 2, he made a few moves in stage 2. Obviously, that trying to go 4 wide in the hairpin was a bad move, but there were some other moves, some boneheaded decisions that he made behind the wheel that I was like, what is Reddick trying to, like, he was obviously pressing way too hard.
He was way overdriving
it, yeah. The playoffs. But on to stage 3. Here we go.
Yeah. Then he buckled down, and they pitted on the last caution, and he proceeded to pass 15 cars in the last 25 or so laps and made the playoffs. Would have made it even without the thing that happened later, but made the playoffs anyway. Finished 7th in the round of 12, and let me tell you, standing behind that Monster Energy pit box down there, I was stressed out.
Yeah, I wasn't as stressed, obviously not being a huge Reddick fan, but I will say it was a cool moment. And then you look at Logano; they were showing Reddick's POV and Logano's POV, and Logano's got SVG, and right in front of SVG's got Allmendinger coming, 2 of the best premier road course races in the sport.
Who should have both been in front of him if the Kaulig pit crews knew how to change tires, but that's a different conversation.
But yeah, so those guys were chasing him. They got past him. But even those 2 spots, Reddick still advanced because he had more than those spots at that point after passing 15 cars. So Logano out of the playoffs. We saw him on pit road, looked devastated, was doing the interviews. I mean, obviously he's devastated. He's out of the playoffs. We leave the track. Everyone leaves the track. Logano's out of the playoffs. And Bowman's in. All 4 Hendrick drivers. First time ever. Really cool moment for Hendrick.
Well, first time for Hendrick. Ever.
Yeah, first time for Hendrick.
Yeah.
JGR's done it.
And Gibbs.
What?
And Haas. Yeah, and Stuart Haas.
But yeah, so first time for Hendrick, so cool moment for them. And then we get the news. I read a Bob Pocker's tweet. Alex Bowman has failed post-race inspection and has been disqualified. Logano moves on to the round of 8.
Yeah.
Wow.
And NASCAR had to redo all the graphics on Twitter, which is a little awkward. Allied already posted their congratulations to Alex Bowman. That was more awkward. And man, I was telling you after the race, there's no one I feel worse for right now than Austin Cindric. Man, if he wouldn't have gotten caught up in Talladega, he would have been in here so easily. Well, Alex Bowman took that spot because now there's no one I feel worse for than Alex Bowman. And he has driven the best of any driver in the playoffs so far. And we also have an Alex Bowman bumper.
Bowman, if you're watching, this might be our fault. We went into Hendrick the day before the race, and we found this, which I can flip around and show y'all.
Yeah.
I don't know if this camera can see it. I'm going to put it right here for a second just so y'all can see it.
Yeah.
This is a 2020 Chevy Goods Alex Bowman bumper when he was in the number 88. We don't know what race because it had been Hendrick's shop for so long. It was sitting in a corner.
We think it might be Bristol, though. We think it might be Bristol.
We're assuming Bristol. We asked the guy how much. He said $75. So we said, all right, we'll take it. So now we have a bumper the next day. That happens to Bowman. Bowman, we're sorry. I did not know the bumper was 17 pounds. I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's our story on maybe causing Bowman to miss the round of 8. But it's not our fault, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Although, if you do want to see what actually happened, check out the GTD TikTok page.
But what just came out, Hendrick's not appealing. Which
Yeah.
I think is...
That's a bad look. That seems like you did something a little shady and you got caught and you didn't expect to be inspected.
Because everybody pointed to the clip of Bowman getting air and crashing in stage 1, hitting in the wall. There's something that flies off the back of the truck or back of the car, but it's not 17 pounds. It's like a piece of rubber.
And
or something.
you would think if Hendrick thought they had any ground to stand on, they would appeal and then use that clip as like, oh, something fell off the car.
You had something to appeal with, and they still said we're not appealing.
Yeah.
And we were there, so like we weren't limited to the TV view. We could look at whoever we wanted to. Bowman was nowhere. Then Bowman was somewhere.
Yeah.
Stage
1 ran nowhere. Stage 2 suddenly became a top 5 car. Part of that is pit strategy, but was also able to stay up there. And then it seems like they did something at the end of that stage 1 in pit stop.
Yeah, I agree, but it's a little fishy. I'm not gonna get too far down the rabbit hole because I feel like we don't need to because there's gonna be so much of that on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's not our place. But I mean, it's a top 10 car. It wasn't a top 10 car when they finished. Finished 9, so we finished top 10. And obviously they filled it up, ran the
water,
ran the pickups, purged the water out, put new water in. Still didn't make it. So
reweighed it after doing that, still didn't make it.
Yeah, I'm going on a limb and say somebody messed with something that they weren't supposed to. But anyways, moving on to the round of 8. It's set. Field is set. Now that we know he's not being appealed. Las Vegas is the first race. Who do you have not leaving, or who do you have getting eliminated in the round of 8?
Eliminated in the round of 8. I don't know, man. It's tough for me because
this is when it gets very tough. And
it feels like all of these guys deserve to be in the championship 4 at this point. And even year Logano is always inevitable. And that's just in the back of my head always. He was even eliminated. And even year Logano went, psych, I'm still in this thing. But I think the 2 for me that I'm most confident in are Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. I think those are 2 of my 4. And then for my final 2, I'm going to back the boy. I'm going to back Tyler Reddick. And then give me Ryan Blaney. I think Blaney Byron is that 4-5. For me, Denny Hamlin, I don't think is on form that he needs to be. I don't think he's able to make it. Logano doesn't have the speed, hasn't had that speed all year to be a championship 4 car. And then Chase Elliott, although he is hyper consistent, he has not had the ability to go out there and dominate and or win a race this year, other than the Texas race, which he won kind of at the last minute. So, give me Larson, Bell, Reddick, and Blaney.
I'm going Logano. Logano's, I think he's the 8th car. Even the Logano, I don't believe. You know me, I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in crap like that.
Oh, I meant Larson, Bell, Reddick, and Blaney in. By the way, not out. I meant those 4 in. So my 4 eliminated are Byron, Hamlin, Elliott, Logano.
Okay, so yeah, we both have Logano out. Logano's 8th car. Then I have Todd Reddick as a 7th car. Had a hell of a drive in stage 3 of the road course, but other than that, as far as the whole playoff goes,
not been good.
And road courses are one thing, but they haven't been good at tracks they're supposed to be good at. And Las Vegas is similar to a track they're supposed to be good at.
I think in a round with Vegas and Miami, I don't see how he gets eliminated.
I don't think it's Reddick, because I think Reddick's going to outdrive the car. I just don't know if 23 Living has the car. But even then, like, I'm not saying he loses by a long.
Oh yeah, it's close.
So tight. So I have Reddick and then Hamlin for the same reasons you said, and then it's between Byron, Blaney, and Elliott. I think Elliott pulls a win out. I think that's what advances him. I think it's Martinsville. I think he pulls a win out of Martinsville. I think it's an elimination. I don't think he's in a must-win situation at Martinsville. But I think he comes in maybe the 5th spot in the red at Martinsville and wins. So my last car out. So I have Larson, Bell, Elliott.
So we both have Larson, Bell, our favorite driver, and then Byron or Blaney.
Yes. And right now I'm swinging Byron.
Okay. So
Byron's had some momentum swings. Had a great day yesterday. Byron's on the up and up for me.
All right. Yeah, both of those guys have a lot of positive momentum right now. I trust Blaney a lot. I think he's a clutch driver. So we'll see what happens with that. It's going to be a great round of 8. Some good tracks here. Vegas, Miami, next gen Martinsville. But
yeah. make sure you qualify well if you're trying to.
Yeah, really. You cannot afford a bad qualifying in next-gen Martinsville. But
Yeah.
Vegas, Homestead, always great races. Intermediate racing with this package is always pretty solid.
Yeah.
So excited for both of those. Speaking of Vegas, yes. Who do you have winning?
I'm in between two guys. Byron is one of those guys. But ultimately, I'm picking Bowman.
Oh, no. That would be the biggest kick in the gut.
He's been great. He's been one of the best drivers of the whole series.
But Keegan is getting replaced by Justin Haley.
Yeah, whatever. Bowman's been great. Now, him not appealing or whatever may affect his mental state, and it may not be as, or he may just be like, well, screw NASCAR. I'm going to go and try and win this race.
Yeah, I think he's that kind of personality.
I do too. I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to go win this race. If not, it's Byron. So Bowman or Byron. I have the 24-48 with Hendrick.
Well, I also picked a guy whose name that starts with B. It's Christopher Bell. We haven't heard much from Christopher Bell in a while. He's just been...
Except for yesterday.
Yeah, he ran... That's what I was saying. He's been quietly getting better and better. Ran really well yesterday. Was the best non-Kyle Larson car in that race. And he likes Vegas. He is fast. I've really stood on the hill this year that I think pure pace in a NASCAR Cup Series next-gen car this year, the fastest guy on pure pace is Christopher Bell. I think that is the case this year. I also don't think JGR equipment has been as good as people would normally think it has been this year.
I think when it's good, it's great, but I think they miss.
They've missed a lot. They've had a lot of reliability issues. I think it's really held Bell back. You saw what he can do in a car that's good enough to win. Look at Loudon. He dominated Loudon. Yeah. When he dominated Gateway, and then the car exploded. So I think he is more than good enough to win this race, and he always shows up this time of year, and it feels like he always wins his way into the round of 4. I think he does that early. I think he wins at Vegas.
You don't think he wins an elimination race like always?
Not this time.
Yeah. But Bell, I think he's. I mean, obviously, I had him second, first or second. Honestly, he's probably going to be the first driver out of the Ford into the championship 4. I think it'll be Bell 1, Larson 2. Larson's got the point buffer, but I think Bell runs these 3 tracks. Well, they fit Larson as well, but they also fit Bell, and I think Bell is a little faster if his package is up. But on to the other weird-looking circles with weirder-looking non-stock cars. F1's back.
Yes,
Yay.
Finally, after second break for some reason.
Forever.
Normally there's summer break. They're like, what about autumn break? And everyone's like, no. And they're like, let's do it anyway. But... We got Austin, Texas this weekend. Yeehaw is back, and Daniel Ricciardo is not. Reminder, he's been kicked out of the V-Carb. Liam Lawson is back, and Liam Lawson's a great talent. I will say, I know there's a lot of Daniel Ricciardo fans. Don't let your love for Daniel Ricciardo and the fact that I don't think Red Bull handled this right at all, getting rid of Daniel Ricciardo. Don't take that out on Liam Lawson. The dude is an incredible driver that definitely deserves an F1 seat, and I think he's going to put on a show his last few races of the season, and then I would expect him to be in that car next year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, you saw when Ricciardo wanted to, he could lay down the fastest lap in that car. So good young talent. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Extenuating circumstances. But
in that same car. Yeah, but whatever.
Yeah, but on to the actual racing in Austin. This is usually at least a decent track for racing. You saw the great race a couple years ago with Verstappen and Hamilton in 2021. A great race at COTA. So what is your podium for this week?
I have Norris. Probably not a shock to most people. Then Verstappen. Also, maybe a little shock to some people at this point. And
Red Bull's bad right now.
So I have the double McLaren, Piastri in the third. Double McLaren podium with Norris 1, Piastri 3, and Verstappen 2nd. And then I have Mercedes finishing better than Ferrari.
Okay. Interesting.
I almost wanted to put Russell 3.
Well, I did put Russell 3. I have George Russell 3rd, and then some McLaren 1, 2 for me. Lando Norris on top, Oscar Piastri behind. I think at this point, McLaren's going to be full team orders mode. It's going to be Oscar, just don't pass Lando. I think that's going to be. I think Norris will be faster as well. I think he has the pace at this point in the year. He's really on form.
In this week, as far as we're concerned, there's a situation where Piastri's has to give up a lead.
Yeah, I do think, though, if that situation happens, McLaren will be on the radio with team orders this time. But I just don't think the Red Bull's there. I think Verstappen is an incredible driver. I think the Red Bull, maybe if it's like a 8th place car, he drives it to 4th. And then I also,
4 weeks to work on it.
I expect Ferrari to be a bit down here as well. I expect Mercedes to be ahead of them. So George Russell 3rd for me. But that is it for F1. That is it for motorsports. But we do have MLB as well. October baseball is going on right now. Yeah, playoff baseball, Keegan's a big fan in case you weren't able to tell that already. But the NLCS, ALCS are both set. Mets-Dodgers game 2 going on right now. Last I saw, the Mets were in the lead 6-3. They still are in the lead 6-3 in the bottom of the 8th, but the Dodgers do have 2 on base with 2 outs.
Yes. Very excited about these NL and ALCS series and what could be the World Series. But going back, I want to start with the Guardians making it to where they are. Because it looked like Detroit was going to have their legacy run. They had Screwball rocking in Game 5.
And then Screwball got rocked.
And then he got rocked. Exactly. Not a good outing for Screwball, but it's like you can't put that series loss on Screwball.
No.
You can't.
That's going to happen to a pitcher every now and again. Or if you're Dylan Cease, it happens all the time. But
Shade. But yeah, so it sucks for Screwball, but it's going to happen. He'll shake it off. He'll be better next year in the playoffs, hopefully, if he can take pretty much carry the Tigers back to their playoff.
I think they signed a big bat in the offseason.
I do too. I agree. So Guardians, Yankees, ALCS, Mets, Dodgers, NLCS. Let it happen. Make it happen. You've talked about Joey Logano. Get that out of here. I want 2024 Subway Series World Series.
I think it happens. I'm backing the Mets.
I think the Yankees make the World Series.
Did you not learn your lesson in the last series? Back the Mets.
I'm backing the Mets. The Mets, I am 100% backing the Mets, but I just don't know about the Dodgers. They did the same thing to the Padres. Well, that could have been the Padres just forgetting how to hit, getting shut out for their last 27 whatever innings. So I'm going Mets. So we're good. Mets, Yankees World Series. I want it to happen. We're going to make it happen.
We got the third out in the 8th. Mets are up 6-3 heading into the 9th.
And last thing about baseball that I want to touch on is a big discussion right now in the world of baseball is the bye week. If you're the top 2 team in the American League and National League, you get a bye week. You don't have to play in the wild card series. What are your thoughts on the bye week after this year? 3 of the 4 teams with the bye advanced.
I thought the whole narrative that the bye was like a detriment was dumb anyway. That's just not how sports work.
That was just
you want
Braves
the rest.
fans. Sorry, excuse.
I would say that was a big part of it as well. And teams with the bye losing all their fans like, well, if we didn't have the bye, we would have beat every team by 1,000,000. Like, no, that's just these other teams beat you. Almost every sports playoffs has byes, and they don't always just nuke teams out of the playoff. So I think it was a little bit of a statistical anomaly to start with the MLB playoffs when they expanded.
Well, it was mostly the National League. The American League was still pretty good about
the National League was very weird, though. I don't think the bye's a problem. I'm totally fine with it.
No, I agree 100%. I'm fine with the bye. I think honestly, if you had one team advance this year, they might have changed it just because the fan base was up in arms, would have been up there. National League fan base was already up in arms.
When are baseball fans not up in arms?
Base, exactly. Well, I mean, when your leadership is what it is, you tend to get that. But yeah, I think it's staying at least for the next probably 8 years at this point, 6 years until they redecide what they want to do with the playoffs or add a new team or whatever.
32-team playoff. With only 30 teams.
I was about to say 64-team playoff. It's a double elimination. But yeah, I think it stays. And yeah, I think that's all we had this week.
Yep, that is it for this week. If you guys want to see picks for the college football slate this coming weekend, tune in later this week on Thursday. That will be out then. But that is it for the full pod this week. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we will be back next week.